common scenario I see online that I've been seeing for years is that when someone tries to defend Heir to the Stars, people automatically assume it's me. And my question is, why? Why is it that when a poster or a fan makes sense of the series or reasons with the series, all of a sudden, no, that has to be Lionel. That has to be Suggs. Why, when people see, egocentric profiles of me, they assume that it's just me. When people praise my work, it's me. When posters ask, why do people talk crap about Heir to the Stars? People automatically assume it's one of my friends. Because realistically, I have no friends that are on the boards. So at least that's something I know. And I know it's not any of them. I personally don't think my goal is that colossal. But I think it's a issue that when someone tries to make sense of my work or someone tries to defend my work, people automatically assume that it's me. That's already an issue. But people can think what they want to think. But then, when it comes to the other topic, and it's something I haven't really touched on, but my writing is too bad to be liked or respected. And when I see that commonly, I think I don't use speech patterns, I don't use poor punctuation, I don't use weak grammar and syntax. My sentences, for the most part, are not too long. My unrelated clauses are there for a reason. I don't have jumbled vocabulary, but vocabulary that is connected to the world of the story. I'm not straining to impress. I'm not drowning in cliche tropes. There is repetition, so that is on me, but there's also a purpose and a reason for that. But then, when we get to the fact that I have so many characters that are just faces for power, the power has more story than the actual characters, that's a problem. Or there are contradictions within the verse that people don't want to make sense out of or refuse to understand because it doesn't meet their criteria of logic. Even when I do explain it within the story, on the Wikia, on the website, or even on here, it's basically overshadowed by their logic of Lionel's just a bad writer. Someone once explained that my writing is bad through this. You know how when you had a snowball fights, Nerf gunfights, whatever, as a kid, and there would always be that kid who would make up some bullshit rule like, you can't hurt me because I'm invincible, and eventually no one wants to play with that kid anymore because he makes himself too overpowered all the time? That's the Suggsverse problem. Another person said, Beyond Omnipotent isn't a legit power level on account of it defies common sense. Not the laws of realities or physics, but the laws of all forms of logic. Clearly, that person doesn't understand what logic is. He said there's a suspension of belief, disbelief, and then, well, there's that. Another person said because it's undoubtedly garbage and has too many laughable contradictions. Someone else said, well, it's not... How do they write? Well, it's not groupthink to think Suggs is shit because he is. He doesn't write like he has the reader in mind. Instead, he writes as if his material is solely for his own consumption. Someone else says, Suggsverse characters are powerless because literally nothing in Suggsverse makes sense. So, here's one that reads, my problem with Suggs is that he writes like an 11-year-old. Suggs writes like he's completely disjointed. One idea starts, then another interrupts it with no explanation. And add on to that, he's creating alternative definitions for words, and it's incredibly hard to get a grasp on the power levels because he tries way too hard to make his character so strong. It's fine if a character is weak. Hell, it's even compelling if a character has to overcome their ineptitude. But if they can punch a dozen times in a nanosecond, that's just boring. Yeah, I don't have characters that slow. But then there's this. I knew it wasn't going to be novel level stuff or anything like that, but I expected a proper flow of events or reason. And of course, there are people who said at least an 11-year-old would have had proper flow of events. When I actually commented on one of these and asked a question of my own, I was told all the literary elements are there. It's just oddly used. And no one had anything to say from this poster. You got a whole thing of comments. Now all of a sudden everybody want to get quiet. I was told that the fighting can't be appreciated when there's no context for it. It would have been better to use figurative language to at least make the fighting sound more exciting. With my original style from 2007 to 2011, it sounds like there is a narrator right there using a calculator to figure out the math behind the fight. There's a lack of immersion. And finally, this other poster says, Suggs just isn't a good author because he's trying so goddamn hard that he's making an ass out of himself. If he calmed down and wrote instead of competing with other writers, he might have been able to produce something genuinely worthwhile. So, I have my own style of writing. There are those that like it and thinks it is fun, but then there are those that don't like it because they can't make sense out of it, despite the myriad of ways that I've made it easy for them to understand. A lot of this I have not ignored, and actually, I've implemented this advice in my later works. Even I'll say the one story that wasn't my best effort, which is Prey, is getting a reboot to correct the failings of the original. However, the story was set up the way it was on purpose, and there was reasoning behind it. I've said this in the thread before, and I'll say it here. The incorrect usage in terms and definitions apparently only means that in every world, in every realm, every plane, that everything is the same. Right? Because that's asinine. That is ignorant to believe. Why have parallel dimensions if the laws of physics are not in polar opposite to another? You already have various definitions of omnipotence. You have various forms of logic. And even in those texts, they tell you this ain't universal. This is being debated upon. Like, despite what people may argue, it's common knowledge. I'm not saying I'm the best writer. I'm not competing with the best writers or any other writer. I'm having fun with my work. I love writing. I either have something you'll like or something you're going to hate. But I do have a goal in mind, and I know I'm reaching it. I have my own style, and you don't all have to respect it, but there's quite the march because there's quite the march of people that don't. But I'm just getting started. There's so much more to come. I just wanted to touch upon this since it's something I've seen quite a lot.
Where are you going? To the art gallery, right? Good. You can find all the things Heir to the Star related at www.heirtothestars.com. And hopefully you can surpass the Ace of Spades while you're at it. Come on.